Hello there, my friends. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you have a lot of time. And if you don't have, then don't watch this video now. Go and, it's Ramadan. If you have an hour, or I think it's going to be more than an hour, or more, then just play this and try to get into what I'm trying to say to you. Now, I want to share with you, the reason I make these videos is I want to bring you into and I want to share with you the many hours of research and exploring and investigation that I've been doing for many years. And of course, the last 3-4 years, my focus was very hardcore on the Qur'an. And I just, every verse, 6,300 verses, the last few years, my efforts went into rereading every verse of the Qur'an. Before that, about say 4 years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, I had already made a major transformation in my worldview, in the way I understand the world. And my identity as a Muslim is very integrally affecting my worldview. That's who we are. I mean, you were born a Muslim. If I was born a very secular-minded citizen of the UK, living somewhere in Liverpool or wherever in North Park, born from, white parents, I would probably have different ideas that would affect me. My identity would be different. And so I understand that my identity, being born a Muslim, being born in a particular set of values, aspirations, dreams, hopes, rules, norms, it affects the way I'm thinking. And so, although I have tried over the years to reinvent and to look at myself afresh and to look at that which I was given by my mother and taught by my close loved ones, that which, that it does in fact make sense. So I'm going to share with you in this video where I'm at, and also maybe hopefully offer you an opportunity to rethink yourself, to think, where are you at in terms of what do you view as important? What is your life going to be all about? What are you going to be treating as sacred and central and foundational and holy in your life? Now let me first show you a few books here. I've got a stack of books here, and I'm going to show you I've got about 6 or 7 books. The variety of things that over the years that I read and that I considered, like for example, back when I was going to mosque every day for Salah, we had a little club and we would go every day. We would pick each other up and we would pitch up at the mosque and we would join the community, the Jama'ah, at least once a day for Maghrib, for the suns, just after sunset Salah. Back then, I encountered the Tablighi Jama'ah, right? And those guys would sit after the Salah, after the completion of the ritual Salah. They would then sit and they would read these amazing stories. And actually got, I couldn't help but get this book, which is the storybook of the Tablighis. And it's a book that visits a whole lot of hadith stories, other stories from books, what they call qisas, narratives. And, well, all I can say is that it's a book that you'll see now when I come to the next phase of this discussion, that definitely saw a gap in the Muslim mind, or in the market, or in society. And we know who Maulana Ilyas is, the founder of the Tabligh Jamaat, who is in his own way a responder to realities of his time, a perception that Islam is drifting, or the Muslims are drifting, and they are losing their identity and they're losing the essence of what it is. And his solution was to have his, I think it's a 10-point plan, whatever, and for moral reform. And really what Maulana Ilyas of the Tabligh Jamaat believed was that by morally refining the community, by coming back to basics, by rekindling an affinity for the old stories and for the old men and for the old heroes and so on, that he could actually rekindle the identity, the Muslim identity. Okay, so that was him. Then another stream of thinking that had a very strong influence on me much later on in my life was, of course, a local Muslim cleric or leader by the name of Imam Abdullah Harun. And he was an activist in the political struggle. In other words, he fought against the white racist state, which denied anyone with a brown or darker skin complexion real political freedom and economic freedom, in fact. So you couldn't open, if you didn't have a white skin, you couldn't open a shop in the center of town, for example. You couldn't go to a beach. You know, God's beaches were for God's white people. They left a few beaches for, obviously, for the brownest complexion people. And he was a brave warrior against this, and he joined some of this secular black Pan-Africanist. In fact, he joined the Pan-Africanist Congress, which was a Pan-Africanist black dominated political organization, liberation movement, that was banned and sent underground. And he then worked with them, collaborated with them in order to help people who were the most dire victims of apartheid to advance their struggle, to advance through whatever means. And he did travel around the Muslim world. He spent time in Egypt, I believe. He was in the UK. And so Imam Harun was actually a thinker in his own right, although his level of communication was always accessible to ordinary people. But the book that really touched me was this one. It's called The Killing of the Imam. And this narrates the heart-wrenching story by a very close friend of him, Barney Desai, because while Barney Desai was very close, he was based in Britain, and he was able to receive some communications from Imam Abdullah Harun. So Imam Abdullah Harun actually marries his identity as a Muslim with his obligation to be in service of humanity in general. In other words, to serve as an agent for liberation, for emancipation of people who are oppressed, never mind if they're Muslim or non-Muslim or whatever. And so he dies a martyr in the process, being tortured and murdered in the jails of the apartheid system. And so this is another book, one of my biggest, one of the people that probably has the biggest effect on my identity, who I feel I should be as a Muslim. Another book, very interesting. When I went to Egypt for a while, I encountered not so much the lecturers at the university, but the students who were with me there. And it was a time of extremely productive discussions, investigations, debates, probing of existing Muslim ideas, and it was in the early 90s. And so this is a book I think that represents that stage. Imam Shafi'i's Risala, I had Arabic also, but this is the English version, and it really spells out the methodology, the minhaj, or the basic underlying principles of Shafi'i thought. Now I must remind you that Shafi'i thought is probably the most dominant and most well elaborated thought amongst all the four schools. I mean, the Hanafis have articulated some sort of a philosophical methodology or underpinning of the ideas, but I think it is Imam Shafi that most eloquently represents what we regard as Muslim legal scholarship and thinking. So it's a very important book, Risala, and it spells it out. Another book I have here is Malcolm X. I have the autobiography and the final speeches. And this is another hero that spoke to me, that spoke to my who I was. because here's a man who was also a victim, a member of a community that was under the boot of Western cultural imperialism or colonialism. Although he's a citizen of the West, none experienced the crudeness of Western racism or Anglo-Saxon racism than the black American, I think. And nobody can more proudly illustrate how they could overcome such crude racist subjugation. Starting out as slaves, as being dehumanized to the most highest degree, and then coming around and producing somebody who became the president. I'm not an Obama fan, but being a nation that ends up becoming a cultural phenomenon in the West. I mean, nobody can deny the cultural centrality or importance of the black African American. And so we have to celebrate, and it's really a story of victory, also a story of ongoing struggle. But I think Malcolm X plays such a key role in that successful evolution and freeing of the African American. I just want to show you here, I do have the work of Sam Gerrans, The Mysterious Letters of the Quran, Complete Solution. I have it. So I just want to show you that, who is a contemporary scholar, Quran researcher, who has really done amazing work in giving a fresh reading, a fresh understanding of the meaning of the sacred Mus'haf of the Qur'an. I want to show you another book here, and then I'll give you the background. I have a book here called, written by Shah Abdul Aziz, Puritanism, Sectarian Polemics and Jihad. Now this is an interesting work that actually explores the main ideas within the Shi'i and Sunni world, philosophical world. And I have another important book also there, which is Taqrib Bain al-Mazahib, which is a book that speaks about making some sort of rapprochement between Sunni and Shia. Another book here, an example, Islam and Revolution, Writings and Declarations of Imam Khomeini, which played a very, very important part in my growth intellectually, especially back in the 1980s and 90s, 80s maybe more importantly. And then there's also works of Sayyid Qutb, milestones, very, very core text also. And then there are works by the famous subcontinent writer Maulana Maududi, who theorized extensively on Islam in a modern state and how how a modern Islamic society could function. Now, all right, that's, I guess, an introduction. And why did I show you these books? Why am I giving you sort of a bit of a wild, eclectic kaleidoscope here of books and ideas? Well, the reason is that there are really two ways of making sense of your own identity and of the world. There's really two ways of doing it. Now, in education, we are busy with generating knowledge, right? What I'm talking to you is knowledge, is understanding, is insight. It's making sense of the world. And this is what we're doing. We're busy sharing knowledge. I'm busy hopefully bringing you into a particular understanding. So let's quickly, why did I show you this eclectic different set of books, from the Tablighi to the Imam Khomeini to Malcolm X and Imam Harun and all these great figures? I didn't have any books here of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, Muhammad, the great Wahhabi scholar of the Najd of Arabia. I guess he could also get a place there. You see, we look at the world, we construct our understanding in three ways. Your mind, your identity, the way you see the world and the way you interpret the world and the way the world makes sense to you can come along three pathways. Right? The first one is to figure it out yourself, to sit down and to read a lot and to listen to a lot of viewpoints and to see where the contradictions lie. Because if somebody said something today and in a year's time he said the opposite thing, obviously he's going to lose credibility in your opinion, isn't it? I mean, if you look at my videos now, there's a 3-4 year record of videos that you can go and look back at, you know, and you can go and see. But Anwar, now you're saying this in 2021, you made 400 videos and the earlier videos are talking a completely different story. Now, I'm not talking about elaborating something, but of contradicting yourself. So I could have elaborated on certain things. Like I had an idea on what Salah was back in 2021. And now I have an idea of what Salah is, but it's not a new idea. It's an elaborated idea. It's a more expanded idea. It's a more in detail idea. That's the one where you could reach what is true by just investigating all the arguments and weighing them up to yourself. That's the one way. The other way is to socially attach yourself, to embed yourself socially. So in other words, to embed yourself in a community, to give a commitment to that community. Let's say if you really feel that the Salafi understanding of the world appeals to you, the Dawa bros and, you know, all these guys, then you could offer them your commitment and you could make a decision that you, from now on, you will be part of the Salafist community, of that school of thought, of that thinking, of that trend. And you would then accept everything that is given, whatever that community then stands on is what you stand on. So you just basically, it's another way of saying madhab. You know, it's a madhab. It's kind of embedding yourself in an existing tradition and just, you know, accepting whatever comes as part of that tradition. That's more of a socially constructed way of an understanding. And so as they produce thinking and ideas, so you just basically take that on. And your idea of knowledge, your idea of learning is just reading Salafist books or watching Salafist videos or watching Salafist debates. Now and also building a strong wall or a resistance to anything that is non-Salafist. So if somebody comes and he offers you some ideas of the Jafari or the Shi'i or the Zaydi or whatever, or Sufi ideas, or maybe even Ash'ari ideas, which is just another stream, you then would feel resistance towards it. You would naturally build up an immunity to that. I'm just doing Salafism as an example. You can also be embedded as a Shi'i, whatever Shi'i school of thought you might want to think of. Let's say the majority would be Ithna Ashari Shi'i. You could then identify a mullah or a ayatollah and affix yourself to that ayatollah and become a dedicated, unquestioning follower of that particular ayatollah. Or you could be a Sufi and then you attach yourself to some Sufi order, right? So that's the second way that you could proceed in building your own identity, constructing your worldview. But there's a third way. There's a third. Now the first one was purely cognitive, intellectual, right? The first one, it was you and the books. and it's a cognitive, intellectual struggle for you. You have all the books, and you learn, and you compare, and you draw out, and you become pretty much your own person. The second one is mazhab, to follow, to embed yourself in one of the many ways of thinking, whether it's tabligh, whether it is Wahhabi, Shia, whatever, right? The third one is the one that is really interesting for me. What's the third one? The third one is where you proceed with a problem solution methodology. So in other words, you live, you experience life, you are taught certain things, and you proceed with the starter package, right? What your parents taught you. But as you proceed with that starter package, your identity, your worldview, you then experience problems and contradictions and trouble and difficulties. Let's say, for example, give it to you a practical example. You have problems with your own health. You have problems with your finances. You have problems with reconciling one aspect of your life with another aspect of your life. In particular, let's say your work life requires or needs or flourishes from a particular set of values that you have to offer. And your private life, your family life, your religious life demands a different set of values. So your work might require of you to be greedy, to be competitive, to be hungry for money, to proceed like if you're in sales. But really in your private life, you really are more comfortable with being comfortable with less and with having a more simple existence. And so while you have to do the job doesn't work with who you really are. So what is the third one? The third one is really a problem-based intellectual growth pattern process. And that's the one that I really, that forms the underpinning of my research, my understanding, my investigation. Although I'm not saying the others are irrelevant. Like, I'm embedded, I was born a particular identity. I've pretty much held on to most of that. I have an intellectual, purely cognitive process of weighing up. That's also, but I would say the most central and I guess the most prolific methodology that is delivered for me, the most productive thinking, is the problem-solving approach. Is where you look around at yourself, at your community, at society, and later on you look at the world as a whole. Yes. As you get older, you try and make sense, and you experience the contradictions, you experience the pain, and you try and make sense of it, and you try and think what should be different for this to improve. Now, these three patterns of thinking, they mirror actually, I would say, philosophies of education. Philosophies of education, there are those three basic philosophies of education. It's constructionism, it is constructing ideas, social constructionism from a community. There is cognitivism, which is constructing knowledge purely from mind work, brain work, and cognitive work. And then there's the third one, which is the problem-solving approach, which is a newer, more contemporary way of looking at the world. And all universities, I think all universities right now have accepted the importance of a mixed and of a blended approach to knowledge. So Gone are the days, because early on, was the European Enlightenment, Western universities were really focused on cognitivism. And then it made room for social constructionism, which is socially generated knowledge and socially vetted knowledge, which is more of a interpretivist, more of a subjectivist way of knowledge, of looking at knowledge. But then most recently now, the mixed approach, the hybrid or the blended approach to knowledge has become extremely in vogue in Western institutions of learning. And that is where, at the root of the pursuit of knowledge and understanding, is really the seeking of solutions. The seeking of solutions. At the heart of the knowledge project, the endeavor to build understanding, to build insight for yourself and for your community, for your society, at the heart of that project, the engine that drives it is the seeking of solutions. Now, it does make it sound like we are being pragmatic, and pragmatism comes with its own problems. No, but I really think, if you think of solutions in a broader sense, not just in terms of money or in terms of productivity or in terms of efficiency, but we are talking about solutions that transcend the business milieu. We are referring to problems that transcend the business environment, like, for example, joy, happiness, fulfillment, meaning, because all of those are problems. If people experience a lack of meaning, a lack of purpose, it's not a business problem. That's not an economic challenge. They might have $1 million in the bank, but they suffer a loss of meaning, of purpose. And so when I say the contemporary approach to knowledge is a solution or a problem solving approach to knowledge. What does that mean? That means that you take any aspect, and you can really apply this to the medical, to the social, to political, to any area of human endeavor and experience. The starting point of the problem-solving approach to knowledge is a problem. That's the starting point. So we have to start by becoming aware of a problem, of a challenge, of a difficulty, of something that prevents us from performing or from excelling or from experiencing happiness or experience fulfillment, whatever. And that is really the starting point of the knowledge, of the process of learning, is problems, is issues, difficulties. And in that way, if you think of knowledge as being something that not necessarily that you seek as an embedded person into the Shia community or embedded into the Wahhabi or the Tablighi or the Sufi, not just, knowledge is not just what you get in that embedded position, but knowledge is what you should seek as a person who's experiencing the world. Now, I can tell you that I have been an embedded individual. I have been an embedded Sunni. I have been an embedded Sufi. I have been an embedded Shi'i. I have been even an embedded, I would say, Salafi mild, when, if you think of the Ikhwan as Salafism mild, Ikhwanul Muslimin. Then the problem is that the problem with being an embedded individual is that it does not allow the flexibility, the leverage, or the ability for you to address and to reconceive and to shape your understanding to meet problems. It prevents that. So if you, for example, let's say, if you're a Salafist, right, and the Salafist believes very strongly that you are unable to pray for your mother if your mother is a Christian woman. In fact, you can't even, really eat with them or share food with them, or you can't even greet them in a polite Muslim greeting. You have to greet in a reduced, in a lesser way. And of course, if they pass away, you're not allowed to pray for them, and so on. Now, what if I have a mother-in-law who is a Christian, or a mother who's a Christian? What if my mother that I dearly love is Christian? I'm telling you now, it creates a conflict between emotionally where you are at and philosophically where your school or your ideology is, what that is imposing on you. So that imposes on you that no closeness. Or you live in a Christian society. You're the only Muslim. But like for many years of my life, I was the only Muslim child in the class of Christian children. And imagine I have to be a Salafist in that situation. I have to say, but you guys are all lost, evil, off the track. I can't, you are not clean. I can't interact with you. I can't engage with you. I can't be close friends with you. How am I going to live? So that is, I'm giving you an example of how being embedded, as I was for much of my life, how being embedded in a particular school of thought, how being a blind follower of a particular school, how it throws up contradictions, it brings up issues, problems, difficulties for you to live and to not even mentioning that certain madhabs call for the woman to cover her whole face. And if she's a single mother and she has to work, let's say in Britain somewhere, or in France, how on earth is she going to make a living by presenting herself in that form to the world of work? So the point I'm trying to make is, I have been there. I have tried out those madhab options, going in blindly, following blindly, committing to a particular school of thought, and then shaping my life. So it's basically an idealistic view of the world. I think that's a different way of putting it, is that you have the idea and now you shape yourself based on that idea. Of course, the constructivist, that is what we call, it is a readily constructed, it's a normative view of the world. Now, these ideas are slightly more complex, and I'm trying to convey them here, right? I mean, you have to study probably a whole year, honors or masters, to really get to the bottom of what does constructionism, social constructivism of knowledge really mean. But I'm going to just suffice by saying I'm giving you a broad idea, and the words and the technical jargon, I'm not going to go there. By being a purely cognitive, intellectual, and just constructing ideas in a laboratory comes with its own challenges. Right? I've given you the reason why I feel blind following and being embedded in a particular school of thought blindly without really being critical, how that causes problems. But I'm going to give you the problems with a pure cognitive intellectual approach. Now, I would say there are many members of the Quranist fraternity today that fall into this trap. Into the trap of making the area of operation, the area of intellectual operation, purely a textual arena. So operating purely in constructing and understanding an identity, and I'm speaking to Quranists now, people who use that term for themselves. It's a growing community, right? It's a very attractive kind of option today, Quranism or the Quranites or the Ahlul Qur'an or whatever. Very attractive community. The problem is that its area of operations, its methodology is strictly restricted to the realm of literature and of intellectual activity. Now, I need to make it a bit more clear. Maybe I should use some examples. You see, although the Ahlul Quran or the Quran night community is very attractive and is growing, it is also fragmenting by the day. It's fragmenting every day. As I speak now, there probably is another new YouTuber coming out with new ideas on what Quranism should be, and and the problem is that there's a certain arrogance that comes with cognitive prowess. If people have the text in front of them and they apply their minds to the text, there's a certain arrogance that comes with extracting the meaning of the text. You see, and what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, if you read the lines in the Quran, Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin. Let's take this example. Let's take this one. Inna Allah, let's take this one. La yughayyiru ma, Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta ba'da a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Particularly, I want to speak to this particular line. God does not change the overall condition of a society until they transform themselves individually. Now, what you get with the intellectual arrogance of the Quranist movement is where they would then impose or deduce a particular meaning of the verse and then impose that meaning as the only meaning, or the exact meaning as intended by the author, in this case by Almighty God, Almighty Allah. And there's a very, very big danger in that type of intellectual arrogance, and that is that we now merge what we see the text to be as what the will of God is. And can you see how dangerous that is? If I see my reading of the text as the will of Allah, then I'm omitting the part where I'm a fallible reader of the text. My mind has a fallible conceptualization or an understanding of that text. And I'm almost like the same as the guys who say that the Sunnah equals the hadith books. This is a very important point. If I say my meaning, my reading of the text is the actual meaning, and it is the meaning that Allah wanted. Now, it doesn't go for every verse. Of course, 90% of the Quran, we understand, we agree on, it's not like an issue. The Quran is very straightforward. But there are, I would say, a healthy 10% of the Quran that lends itself to shades of meaning. There are shades of meaning there. And the arrogance comes in when you think that the shade that you see is the meaning. That is the meaning. There's no other meaning except the shade that you see. And that is the trouble with the intellectual, cognitive approach to knowledge, is that suddenly what your mind tells you is the truth. Now that has caused immense different difficulties for the Quranist movement. Now you have Quranists who believe that earth is flat, and you have other Quranists who laugh at those who say that the earth is flat. We have Quranists who say that pork is halal, because they read the verse on pork in a very, very different way, and they are very adamant as to what their reading means. And there are those who say pork is haram, like, for example, me. And I'm also one of those who say the earth is not flat. There are those who say that Salah is a ritual, and there are those who say there's absolutely not a ritual. It's only a social practice or institution, an abstract social practice. So Salah being abstract social for practice versus Salah being a ritual, repetitive kata or series of movements. So you have a fragmentation of the understanding of the Quran. Why? Because the champions, those who are claiming to be the champions of the Quran, have made themselves their own understanding the champion rather than the book. And so you now have Quranist wars, Quranist debates. One Quranist will say, no, but I'm a messenger of Allah. I believe so-and-so Rashad Khalifa was a messenger of Allah. There's no finality to the messengers, to the Rasul. And another one will say, how can you say that? Messengers and prophets they've all terminated. So, and the vitriol, the animosity, the anger is even more severe, because now you're not debating Muhammad, you're not debating Abdullah, you are now debating Allah. Because Abdullah and Muhammad is saying, my view is Allah's view. I read it says so in the Quran. The Salah is not a ritual. Salah is only an abstract practice. And Muhammad or whatever will say, no. It's a ritual. It's a daily ritual, and you are completely wrong, and you're not you lost your way and whatever. So the problem with this, the following the methodology of pure cognitivism is that, and then you elevate your cognition, the way you figure things out, to the highest possible level, to the level of ultimate truth. I agree. I again reiterate that not all of the Quran lends itself. Well, some people will turn most of the Quran into ambiguity, and that's the arrogance of some people, is that they will actually reach a point of saying that everything in the Quran is misunderstood, and I'm going to teach you a new language, a new understanding of the Quran, and that is to me the epitome of intellectual arrogance. I cannot follow intellectual arrogance, and I cannot also follow blind following, and that is why I'm comfortable that the problem-solving approach, where you actually work towards freeing society, emancipating people at an individual level from the trouble and the difficulties and the obstacles they face, and emancipating people at the social level from the social obstacles and social problems and social challenges which they face, to a broader level, global level, geopolitical level. My Islam, my Quran, my research, my understanding must provide answers to the problems. And that's the bottom line. We have to get answers to problems, and that is how we should proceed in our intellectual activity. Now, it doesn't mean that you're a sole, lonely operator on your own. No. The beauty of seeking solutions is that we could form teams. We could work together to solve common problems. Like in this country, for example, we had an extended period where we had to fight for our freedom, just to be free people, to vote, to conduct business, to go to the beach, to go get into the bus, get onto the train. We had to fight for that, and so we had common cause. A lot of the Muslim leaders in this country, they were also struggle heroes. Ahmad Qasim, Imam Abdullah Harun, Ahmad Timo, Rick, what is his name? The great philosopher from University of Durban, Westfield. And also, so there were many, and there still are. And the way we worked at it is we looked at our Islam and we looked at the struggle against apartheid and against the imposition of injustice. And we made our Islam work. We made the verses speak to our problem. And suddenly, when you read a verse like وَمَا لَكُمْ أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ. And why should you not fight in the cause of those who are oppressed? مِنَ الرِّجَالِ وَالنِّسَاءِ وَالْوِلْدَانِ, men, women and children, whose cry is, "Our Lord, free us from this town whose people are oppressors." These verses suddenly fitted like a puzzle, like a puzzle piece into our identity as a Muslim and as somebody who wants to advance the struggle for liberation in my country. And I'm giving you that example to illustrate how the Quran can become the puzzle pieces, the ayat, the directives could become puzzle pieces that complete the picture for you, that complete you for who you are as an identity, as a person, as a member of a community. And by the way, if I had followed Shafi'i, Sunni, Sufi, whatever mazhabs during the time of the struggle, it probably would have had nothing to say about struggle. You know, Imam Harun, for example, going to prison, he was criticized by his peers. The other priests, Muslim priests, they frowned on him. In fact, they criticized him for struggling in the cause of the oppressed. But he cited the verses. It completed his Islamic identity, and not for following hadiths and scholars and priests and ancient experts and saints, but by just applying his mind to the challenge that he faced. And that is why I'm saying, by taking the problem-solving approach, you actually are able to make the Quran real, to bring the Quran, to make it alive, the verses. And to have an approach to the Quran and to literature in general, because I kind of refute the idea that there's only one book and that's the Quran. No, there's lots of literature. There's a lot of literature. The theorem of Pythagoras is a beautiful piece of literature. The theorem of Pythagoras, if we don't have that theorem, or the work of Khalid al-Khwarizmi, which is the work on algorithms, his work, al-Khwarizmi, his work on algebra, the book that he wrote, Al-Jabr wal-Muqabala, his mathematics work, his trigonometry work, his algorithm, the idea, we would not be here. We would not be able to function as we are today as a global community. Computer science would not be possible. Nothing. Air travel would not be possible. And so I have to reject the idea that there's only one book, the Quran. No, every book that presents a wholesome and healthy argument is a good book. And the Quran is the source and the fount of all of them. The Quran is the source and the fountain of all wisdom and understanding. It all starts there. But when Ibn Khaldun wrote about the rise and fall of nations, and he theorized why nations rise and why they fall, amazing. It's a book that has deep value. I'm going to go so far as to say that I don't want to burn any hadith books. I think hadith books, although I don't see it as the word of Allah, and I think you also agree with me, they're not the word of Allah, and it is only through the word of God that we can construct God's will. God's divine will only is vested in God's words. And if we agree that the hadith are not God's words, but is an attempt at narrating the Prophet's words, not God's words. We don't believe the Prophet and God is one. We don't believe Muhammad alayhi salam speaks with the voice of Allah. No. That is what the Christian belief is. The Christian belief is that Jesus speaks with the voice of God. Jesus and God are synonymous. Jesus is an extension of God. they took it to that level. We say no. Muhammad has agency in his own right. And Muhammad's agency is not the same as God's agency. It is an attempt at expressing the will of God, but it is not the will of God. It is not necessarily. It is an attempt. But human beings by nature are all fallible. And so when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was facing a situation on the battlefield, he would ask his men, what is the best way to do this or that? Right, so where was I? I'm coming back to the concept of problem solving as a means of constructing knowledge. Now, I've been using two terms interchangeably, and that is your worldview and your identity. Let's quickly stand still there. What is your worldview and how does it affect your identity? I have to stand still there. I think just at the first level, identity is, I guess, who you are or who you want the world to see you as. My identity is, I'm a Muslim, I'm a responsible guy, I'm a family man, I'm an honest guy, I'm a decent guy, I'm a successful guy. That is all aspects of my identity. Right? My part of my identity could also be that I'm an upstream guy. I don't follow the crowd, so people know me like that. You could have your own identity. Your identity could be that I'm an amicable person. I go along with people. I don't cause problems. I don't issues and so on. Right. So our identity is integrally connected to our view of the world. Our understanding of the world goes hand in hand. It's almost like the flip side of the coin of who we are. What we think the world is like is the flip side of who we are. If we believe the world, I'll give an example. If I believe the world is a decent, kind, just place and fair, generally fair, the government is good. Let's say I believe Donald Trump is the right guy for our time. I'm an American citizen. I think Donald Trump is just the best idea to fight all the evils and to make America great again. Then my identity, by believing that, I will probably be donning a red cap with the word MAGA written on it. I will probably look a certain way, dress a certain way. I will probably be proud of being a white guy. I will probably be proud of being a Christian guy. I will probably be proud of having girls, daughters, who are blonde, blue eyes. And I would probably be proud of having a big truck, and wearing a big hat or cap, whatever. So I think what I'm trying to say to you is the worldview you have, the way you see the world is the way you create yourself. You create yourself to fit in a particular world. And you would have absolutely no problem with the government. You would defend everything that the government is doing. Now, on the other hand, if you're a person in California, somewhere in Los Angeles, and you're a Latino person and you came illegal into the US and you are being hunted down by ICE, and you'll have a different view. You will see yourself as an outlaw, as a subverter. You have to subvert the system. You have to undermine the system, and you have to crook and con the system. You have to outsmart and maneuver the system. So you will become seen as that, and that is how you will define yourself. The same, with any aspect. Now, the same can come for Muslims. If you a Muslim Salafist, you believe that the world has to be shaped according to the hadith books, Ahmad bin Hanbal, you'll probably dress up in a certain way, you look a certain way, you act a certain way, you believe you've got some right over other people because you are the better one. And so identity and worldview go together. By the way, worldview is your understanding of the world, how the world makes sense to you. Right. What about if you come with a problem-solving approach to knowledge? Because now your identity cannot be cast in concrete. You see, if you follow a problem-solving approach to the world, then you might believe that hijab, or covering of the head and the face, you might read the verse on women's attire, and you might say, listen, I would say that the verse is not very particular on a headscarf. I'm giving an example, right? I'm giving an example. But these examples are also real life cases. I'm a professional Muslim woman. I'm doing ABC, I'm a lecturer, whatever. I have to work in the field, I have to do sampling, I have to go and travel overseas to conferences and so on. I'm going to change my understanding of what modesty now is. Modesty in my environment, in my peer group, is no longer a black outfit that covers my face and my feet, everything. And it's not even anymore a hair covering, because in what is now common and what is modest in my circle is basically just covering below the knees and covering my cleavage. That takes the sexual sort of allurements out. If I cover my chest area, reveal more of my skin, hands, arms, elbows maybe, and hair, and below, that to me is the way I view modesty now. Now, when you're doing real life problem solving and you read the Qur'an to speak to the real world. Now, I'm not saying you must change the Qur'an, but I'm not also saying that you must adhere to readings of the Qur'an that is not necessarily there. You see, the Qur'an never ever states that you have to cover the head, but it can say that if you make certain assumptions that what is a khimar, a khumar or khimar, is it a head scarf or is it a body scarf? Now some people say no, it's a body scarf, it's a body cloak. Some people say it's a head cloak. But that's not in the text. The text says cover your bosom. The literal words say cover the bosom. I'm taking a long time here, but I'm trying to hammer in the point that the idea of knowledge through problem solving allows you to read the Quran with new eyes, with open eyes, and to relate it to your actual life. And we're bringing it to identity. So your identity will more or less there will be a level of flux. There will be a level of elasticity in your identity. You see, with following this method or that method, constructors, blind following, your identity is cast in concrete. You can never look different. You can never act differently. You can never have different views and values because it is frozen in time. The Salafist way, the Tablighi way, whatever. Shafi'i, Shi'i, whatever. But when you follow a problem-based approach, your identity has a level of elasticity. Although it is not, don't tell me that this is, you are following your shahawat, you are following your whims and fancies. No, we're not talking the same thing here. I'm saying there's a timeless principle in the Quran that says modesty, that calls for modesty. But modesty there's a level of elasticity in what is modest in which society. When I operate in a particular country or a particular town or city, modesty can be A, B, C, and when I go to a different place or a different situation, modesty could be X, Y, Z. In place A, modesty could be completely concealing your body, and in place B, it could be just concealing what is sexually attractive. In fact, that's what the Quran says, is that the zina, the sexually attractive parts, need to be hidden from common people, from strange men. And that is pretty much a very liberatory outlook, is when you are able to, there's a certain level of flexibility in the identity, then suddenly Islam becomes less oppressive, and suddenly it becomes a much more realistic and attractive ideology or worldview. Is when I go to America, I keep my core principles: modesty, honesty, hard work, whatever. But there's no flexibility in honesty. But let's take the way I see modesty, the way, in fact, even my diet, the way I eat, I could adapt it. Of course, the ground rules are we don't eat pork. But for heaven's sake, if somebody's going to serve me a chicken burger and I know it's only chicken in there, and nobody has dedicated this chicken burger to any god, Hubal or Lat or Uzza or whatever, or to, Krishna, the burger is clean. The burger is clean. Eat the burger. Eat the chicken burger. Eat the steak burger. If you know what went into that burger. So the point I'm trying to make is that the problem-based approach actually allows you to build in a certain level of elasticity or flexibility into your identity. Although it doesn't challenge or in no way compromises the core aspects of it. We will never ever believe that there is another God but the one true God, Allah. And there's no elasticity in it. We will never ever believe that you will not be accountable for your actions in this world on the day of judgment. That is a core critical belief or understanding. We will never ever believe that God is not just, absolutely just, because that would contradict or cause so many other differences. Well, it's a bit over an hour now, so I'm going to quickly move to the next level, to the next phase. If you like, you can press stop here and then maybe come back, or maybe I'll do this. I'll just keep going. You can decide to continue watching. What has all this got to do with the world today? All this problem-solving approach. Now, let me just throw you with a few jargon words. I harp on the fact that I'm a critical realist. I harp on the fact that my search, my research, my knowledge process of seeking knowledge, my minhaj, is critical realism, is action research, it's problem solving. That is my minhaj. I come to the world not as a Shafi'i, not as a Hanafi, but as a devout submitter to God, as a devout acceptor of the Holy Book, and to apply all those in a devout way to solving the problems that my world or myself or my community experience. And that is who I am. This is what I do. This is my approach to knowledge. I don't come with preconceived ideas like I'm a Quranist, whatever I see in the Quran, that is the truth. No. I'm a humble beneficiary of the Quran. When I say Salah means ABC, I'm making a humble statement of which I have a decent amount of certainty over. If I say, as my view is, that Salah has got two components, there is a regularity in it, there is a ritualistic aspect to it, which means you do it daily, which is 2, 3, 5 times, whatever you want to do. Nobody can debate that it is 2 or 3 or 5 times. That is what we make out. It's either twice a day, morning, ends of the day, or it's 3, which adds a midnight component or a late night component, or it's 5 times. Whatever you, Quran has a ritualistic, regular aspect to it. For the Shia, it's 3 waqtus a day. The Sunni, it's 5 waqtus a day. For the Shafi also, you can collapse it into 3 times a day. But my position is that more than that, Salah also has the meaning of being a general social phenomenon. The phenomenon of alignment to God's will. The phenomenon of connectedness to God. The phenomenon of being connected to the champions of God, those who have championed the cause of God, the messengers. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Verily God and His angels have made salah on the Nabi. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who embrace and commit to this book and this system, sallu alayhi, commit and connect to Him. وَسَلِّمُ تَسْلِيمًا, and submit yourself, comply yourself willingly, voluntarily. So for me, Salah is on the first, it's a ritual aspect, is the ritual regular aspect where we gather and we have worship sessions, we have discussion sessions, we have a kata or a sequence of actions which I think is absolutely legitimate. But it also refers to the more transcendent form of Salah, which is a general sense of submission, commitment, engagement, reaching out, alignment with what God wants us to be, and also connecting society. Salah is creating the mesh, the social structure. That is to me what Salah is. So I'm going to move to the next phase, and the next phase that I want to bring up in this video is a discussion on legacy. You see, the Anwar is now making a video and he's speaking about knowledge being built from a problem-solving methodology, which is also in academic terms referred to as action research or critical realism. Right? Critical realism, action research, social realism. It's all a family of contemporary words you'll find at a higher level of study at university that refers to the same thing that I'm talking about. It's a problem-based approach to knowledge. By the way, the Quran speaks about the prophets came with bayinat. Every time it speaks about Shu'aib, about Salih, about Hud, it says they came with bayinat. Bayinat. What is bayinat? Bayinat. A bayan. What is a bayan? Mubin. Comes from to set out, to explain, to clarify, to give the answer to solve, to give the solution to. Now, the fact that the messengers of God came with solutions, answers, explanations, it to me, it shows me that the prophets and the messengers were all there to come and address crises, problems in their society. In fact, the Quran states it in Surah Al-A'raf, is that these messengers came when their society were down and out, when they were in a crisis. So for me, it echoes the idea of my job is to be as a student, as a reader of the text, as a knowledge seeker, is to bring solutions. And that is the mission, is to bring solutions. If you're a Wahhabi, if you're a Shi'i blind follower of some Ayatollah, if you're a Sufi blind follower of some Sufi Shaik, if you're a Tablighi, I still am waiting for you to show me what immediate problems are you solving. Or are you just bringing, like the colonialists, you're just bringing your new suitcase full of ideas and you're throwing it on us, imposing it on us. No, The actual mission of the messengers, of any one of you following this channel, I'm proposing, I'm telling you, I'm offering it to you. The way it makes sense is that our mission is to solve problems. I have a beautiful set of friends outside of Cape Town that have established an organization called the Rural Islamic Welfare Association, RIWA. It's a group of mature women. I think they could be about, 10, 20 women. I'm astounded at the work that they are doing. They have taken the message of the Qur'an of Islam and they've made it a solution to their community, because out there in that rural community they feed the poor, they help the destitute, they are sometimes the only hand that are there to pick up these people that have fallen by the wayside, single mothers, whoever society has discarded. But where do they get the inspiration from? They get it from the Qur'an. Have you seen those who deny the deen? It is the one who pushes away the orphan, the defenseless. Because in Arabic, yatim can mean defenseless, not necessarily an orphan. وَلَا يَحُدُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ, and do not encourage the feeding of the poor. So they have found meaning in the verses of the Quran. I have another amazing project that I'm really so happy to see my own family, with. It is called Mom's Kitchen, and I will take videos of this, hopefully, and make some videos of it. Where Mom's Kitchen is also a project, a community project, where they cook something like 100 or 200 meals every single day of the week. And they go to unemployment queues, to queues where guys are waiting for jobs. And they dish out these meals, hot meals there. And why do they do it? Because they see the Quran as instructing them. There's a problem in society. There's men looking for work and they don't have any food. How are they going to work if they don't have food in their stomach? They're addressing that problem. Single mothers, Riwa is addressing that problem. So my brothers and sisters, what I'm trying to show you is that by becoming a blind follower, it renders you useless to society. You now are just a colonialist. You're a colonizer. You're like any other European or whatever colonialism. Because your idea is you want to impose your thinking, your religion on people. And we don't have any religion to impose. All we have is service to humanity. All we have is bayinat, to clarify things for people and to solve, to give the hungry some food. Dignity, zakah. Zakah equals dignity. We are here to render or to accord dignity. Ita'uz zakah, according dignity to people. There's no way that says 2.5%. The only thing the Quran says, they ask you what you shall give. Kulil af, whatever is beyond your needs. There's no 2.5%. There's only what is beyond your needs. That is what we give. After we have satisfied ourselves, and we're not asked to give everything also. Anyway, I'm going to move to the next phase of this discussion, and that is this whole approach, this problem-solving approach. Is there history to it? Is there a background to it? Is it something that is rooted in some sort of Islamic legacy, or is it something that Anwar has yesterday just dreamt up while he was sleeping and he's going to make a video? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. The whole idea of the problem-solving approach to your religion, to your worldview, to your identity is rooted in legacy of Islam. I've already mentioned to you that all the messengers came with bayinat, with solutions, with answers to this society's problems. They didn't come with aqidah. That's another favorite pet hate of mine, is that you must fix your aqidah. No, that is a Christian theology, is a Christian construct. Orthodoxy is a Christian construct, and we can't get enough of copying the Christian constructs. And I'm not saying I'm anti-Christian, please don't misunderstand me, but I have a different conception of the world to Christianity. I have a different conception of the world to Judaism. Now, they could be right in their minds, but in my mind, it doesn't admit to making any sense. It doesn't admit to sense or logic to me. There is no theology and there is no aqidah in Islam. We only have what Allah, the deen, the creed, and the creed is abundantly clarified. The true creed is abundantly clarified. وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ وَيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمَ. They have been instructed with nothing else than to believe that there is one God with which there is no partner. In sincerity, Lauddin, Hunafa, naturally compliant, وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ, establishing the network of connectedness, يُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ, observance, وَيُؤْتُوا الزَّكَاةَ, and according dignity, وَذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمَ, that is the upright creed. So don't talk to me about books of Aqidah and you must believe in the Sahaba, you must believe in the Khulafa Rashid, you must believe in this, and you must believe in Isa didn't die on my brothers and sisters. Those are all the titillations and the frolicking of the pseudo-scholars. The pseudo-scholars. Stay away from the pseudo-scholars, from the scholars for dollars. Stay away from them. They have absolutely nothing to teach you. You know, it's like there's this story I always hear. I heard it when I was studying in Egypt, and one of the scholars told me, you know, Ibn Abbas, one of the great early scholars, jurisprudence, he was actually a son, or I think he's a son of a famous companion, Abbas, family member even. So Ibn Abbas was in a state of despair one day, and people asked him, what's up, what's the problem? And I think he was based in Basra, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But Ibn Abbas was based in Basra. And he said, a guy just came to ask me if he can kill a fly when he's in ihram. A guy just came to ask me, can I kill a fly when I'm in ihram? Qatl Zubab. A guy asked me if I can kill a fly. And I'm still crying for them killing Hussein during the Hajj period, during the holy months. Because Muharram is a sacred month. Muharram is a month in which you don't kill. You know, it's regarded as one of the sacred months. It's actually the part of generally the period of Hajj. And he says, the people are asking me about killing a fly, and they've just recently killed the grandson of the Prophet during these holy months, 10th of Muharram. And he laments because he has witnessed how people have lost the way. They have turned Aqidah, fiqh, into the end in itself. They've made that an end in itself, and they have confused the forest with the trees. They no longer see the world as actors or as players in, but they see the world only as drones, as non-playing characters. What do you call them? NPCs. These game characters where the character has no will of his own. The game is written for him. He's an NPC. He just walks in the background up and down there. You know, it's a beautiful metaphor. My son taught me this. It's like you have these NPCs, they just operate in the game and they don't have any agency, they don't have any ability to make a move. Like the computer has agency. You know, the agency, the computer generates characters that make decisions, that follow algorithms. And you as a player have agency, you make moves, you make decisions. But the NPCs, they're just there. And the Muslim world, I think what Ibn Abbas is lamenting is that the Muslim world have become NPCs, non-playing characters. They're basically drones. They just follow blindly. They're just making repetitive moves without meaning, without depth. So my brothers and sisters, I think I want to then link it up with history, with past legacy. And I'm going to... The golden age of Islam, of course, is an age of agency. It's an age where the Muslim mind is applied to the problems of the day. The golden age of Islam is an age where the Muslim mind is applied to the challenges of the day. And when that happens, you have an immediate flourishing, you have an immediate growth spurt, you have an immediate flourishing of civilization. When people apply their minds to the problems, when people stop being blind puppets, then you have a period of flourishing. What we are going through currently, and I'm going to, I think, leave the rest for another video, is we are trying to get back to that, but we are being hamstrung, stopped, retarded by those who refuse to open up thinking for the Muslim masses. And believe me, they are being helped in that by our enemies. And who is the enemy? Enemy is not necessarily the West or whites or Christians or Jews or whatever. The enemy are those people who benefit from the current reality, where people don't think, people don't argue, people don't analyze, people don't solve problems, people follow blindly. And that goes for the Muslim community, for Trump community, for the people, you know, wherever in the world. There's a class of people that want to maintain the status quo. They do not want emancipation for you and for me. They want us to stay stupid, stay dumb, and stay a blind follower. And they will pay. They will fund the Salafist movement. They will fund the Tabligh movement. They will fund the Sufi, Dufi movement. And I'm not saying there's no good Sufis. But they will fund these movements. They will fund the Ash'ari, the Azhar, these scholars for dollars. They will fund them all to prevent us from becoming open-minded and critical about the world and about ourselves. But you know, the benefit, what I take confidence in, or get hope from, is that Allah will never abandon the efforts of the righteous. So I'm going to stop here, and I think this is going on way longer than I thought, but there is still a bit, it's a fairly sizable chunk that I need to add, and I will make another video, so I'll continue in the next video.